Hi, everybody. This is Maxine Taylor with another edition of Move Into the Magic. And one of my most favorite people is my guest tonight, Mary Rodwell. And when I just say that name, you know where we're going with this awesome show. Mary Rodwell is a co-founder of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, otherwise known as FREE. And many years ago, I saw the most awesome video. It was, I think, 90 minutes. It's probably still up and running, that Mary had done called The New Human. And I was transfixed. It transformed my life. I couldn't wait to interview her on my radio show. Well, she has taken that information, that video, and made it into a book. The New Human, Awakening to Our Cosmic Heritage. Now, I am going to give you, if I can get my hands on her contact information right now. Here it is, because I'm going to turn her loose to share everything from her book. And to contact Mary Rodwell, all you have to do is go to Mary Rodwell, RODWELL.com.au. Mary, welcome to Move Into the Magic.
Maxine, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk about all of my latest research. And to a certain extent, you're aware, as many are, that this really is a culmination of many years of talking about contact with non-human intelligences.
Yes.
The reason this is really tied into the foundation that I'm part of now, which is really wonderful because it's the first time any kind of research has been done at this kind of level. And what I mean by that is we've already interviewed 2,000 to 3,000 individuals. We've got this in a number of languages now. It's all anonymous and it's all about people's experiences. And what we've discovered is going to turn ufology on its head, because much of what's happened in media and put out there is sensationalistic. It's generally very negative and very scary. And what we're discovering is the reverse of that in most cases. It literally is turning it on its head. And what we're finding is with over it's nearly 3,600 questions, we're finding what they're saying is that 85% of people found this experience, this contact, this with all these different intelligences, as positive and transformative. Positive and transformative. Now, people really need to listen to that, because the small percentage that are, if you like, still traumatized and are having difficulties are about 25%. I have always looked at that when I wrote my book, Awakening, how it transformed your life. I knew from my own research that this was what ultimately people were discovering, but it was still not accepted, certainly not within mainstream. So that was the important thing. But what has been wonderful about the free research is that it literally supports The New Human and my book, because I'm able to use that research to show how people's lives are changed, how they are redirected after maybe seeing a craft. What also is happening is that they appear to be activated. They are moved into a whole new way of living. And in my book, what I'm talking about there is we've got molecular biologists that have had an activation through their near-death experience and their ET encounters, for example. A medical doctor who talks about her experiences going from 3D MD to multidimensional shamanic healer in her story, from literally going from one to the other. And this is an activation that's going on around this planet. And so it's not just some people, it is people that I believe are ready. But what is important about free, and what we're seeing, that this is broader than the way extraterrestrial contact has been perceived in previous times, where it was perceived as bright lights coming into the room, off you go to a spacecraft, procedures, etc., etc. what we're discovering is contact is happening far more broadly. In other words, it's actually part of human consciousness. And what I mean by that is we're discovering something like nearly 40% have their encounters after a near-death experience, or have their encounters after a shamanic experience. They may have it through a deep grief experience or a meditative kind of experience. And some through ayahuasca and these kinds of things as well. So there's this whole range, out-of-body experiences. All of these may be the way they are interacted. So it doesn't have to be the bright lights in the sky and the craft that they're seeing. It may be through their own spiritual journey, they are activated and then they are interacting with these non-human intelligences. So what Free is saying is, although we're calling it extraterrestrial encounters, we're actually covering the gamut of people that call themselves walk-ins. They may experience it through being a walk-in. They may through dual consciousness, whether they see themselves as a hybrid and connected to the beings. This is humanity being contacted. This is not just an odd few here and there. This is all of us. And we are, through our soul journey, pick the way that we want to wake up. So for some of us, it may be through an out-of-body experience. For someone else, it may be through a near-death experience. For somebody else, it may be through the bright lights because they want a little bit more, perhaps, drama in the way they wake up. You know, it's which way does your soul want to wake up? You know, and for the doctor, the MD, it was through losing her son and then going to India and having an activation in India that changed the way she saw everything. And she works with the galactic frequencies to work on the very nature of DNA. So what we've got and what I'm talking about is broadening the whole concept to what is contact. And contact is us being connected and communicating with non-human intelligences through whatever means suits the soul's journey. So this is all of us. None of us are left out of this. We're all having contact in different ways once we're ready and we're open and we are ready to be activated. So this isn't just a few people here and there, special people that say, you know, you have to be special. No, everyone's special. We're all here to be part of this shift in consciousness. But what is also important that I put in the book, and what is to me profound, is the children are the upgrades. And I talk for the first 9 chapters on the children and their experiences. Now, they have conscious memory of not only where they're from, whatever part of the galaxy, where they come from another dimension, they will talk about this and their past lives, their connection to the beings that take them to the craft and teach them things and explain to their parents that they've got special gifts and they've come with these gifts to this planet at this time. This is conscious recall with children, particularly children under 10, that describe this. And completely, their parents just say to me, what do I do with this, Mary? When I talk to an 8-year-old, for example, that tells me that a few nights ago that she was taken to another planet and she was shown how the beings do genetic engineering with other species and plants and animals, where she's shown how to use her abilities. Some of them say I was taught to levitate or to use my third eye. And one young girl, all of 8 or 9, said to me, Mary, I have the ability to deal with the elements. I can control the wind and I can control clouds. Others will be in charge of other elements and what have you. So they have this understanding, which is fully conscious. Many of them, I say, talking to me, they're under 10 years old. And they're also telling me that when they're in their classroom, maybe one of these beings, one young girl of 9 said that her beings, she calls the fairies, tell her in the classroom not what to listen to what the teacher says, and when it's not accurate, they will actually tell her what's accurate. And one young lady told me that there was a little grey being in the classroom that nobody else sees, but she does, that also does the same thing. So they're being assisted not to be programmed, and they're also being given all this information on spacecraft where they're taken to other planets, the moon, Mars, and all of this is the stories in the first part of the book. Oh. We go into, from that, a young boy in Australia that knows when these beings come in. He plays the piano, and he talks about the fact when he tells his mum, they're coming, you need to film this, and he will go on the piano and bring through the songs from the beings, which one of them is Decoding DNA. Okay, that's just one. Another one's called Arrival. There's a whole range of them, and he's bringing them through. Then he knows when they're gone, and he feels very tired afterwards. But that's his process of bringing through this information, these songs. So this is what is happening with these new children. So what do you do? How do you support them when standard schools don't work for them, and where the teenagers say, school doesn't make any sense to me because I'm taught higher physics on the craft. What they're taught at school is inaccurate. I don't want to go. So I talk about some of the teenagers who share their stories. And we're talking also, and I found myself talking to educators that were starseeds and saying, Mary, we've got to have a new curriculum for these children. So I've got an educator who's a starseed that knows how to create the curriculum. So in one of the chapters is the new schooling that we need, what we actually need to provide for these children. And that the other programs are for ADHD, Asperger's, dyslexia, some forms of autism. They're all seeing more of our multidimensional reality. So how do we not see this as a dysfunction and understand what they're experiencing? Dr. Lena Olson, molecular biologist, is also a letter person, experiencer, is describing what they experienced because of her own experience, saying that she was considered slightly autistic. She said, they're telepathic, Mary. That's why they don't operate the same way we do, why they respond in the way that they do. So I look at a holistic way of understanding the new kids, the new programs, such as ADHD, which one gentleman in his 50s has written a book called Close Encounters of the ADHD Kind, he calls himself Always Dialed into Higher Dimensions. That's the new name for ADHD. So here we have it. It's there. This is explaining it in a way that the parents can understand why their children are different. They're different because they're an upgrade. They're already multidimensional, and we're still got one foot in both camps. 3D, multidimensional, they're multidimensional. And we're saying, come on, you've got to come into 3D and be put in the box. And they're saying, no, thank you very much. Don't want that. Thanks. So we've got to create a new kind of education. And this is going to be where they have an opportunity to actually work with all their skills, all their teaching, all their knowing, all their awareness in a way where they're showing us what they need to be all they can be. So this isn't about us teaching them. It's about them teaching us and showing us what they need. So this is a new education. I mean, I never, Maxine, thought that I would ever look into that side of things. But it's been, the book, if you like, created itself. It said, you've got to say about this, you've got to mention this. Yes. So what I've done is I've needed to look at solutions. Yes. How can we help? Is a holistic way now we can understand these children so that we can provide what they need, because they are where we're going. They're our future. And we can't do the old ways with them because it doesn't work. It's not meant to work. They're not meant to be programmed into this limited 3D. We are meant to actually work with them so we can be activated, not the other way around. So this is, this is going to be very controversial for a lot of people. But it's, to me, it's what our research is showing with Free is that we're talking about human consciousness evolving. This is what the Free foundation is proving, is that we are now evolving as a species. And there are many different ways that we're being activated to evolve, not only from the children with their frequencies, but those that are ready at a soul level to be activated as well. And all of those are activating others that are ready. So it's this kind of wonderful kind of ripple effect that's going on globally. And so that, the book really is about giving those that are perhaps going through this process of activation a confirmation, corroboration, a sense of validation, a sense of peace, that this is all okay, that you can own this and not be thought of as though there's something wrong with you, because so many are afraid they're going crazy, so afraid of judgment. You know, I was only recently a young man in his 20s. His problem was being brought up in a religious kind of environment where he finally wanted to own to them that his understanding of himself from another planet is his truth. He was being authentic, and they couldn't deal with it. They couldn't handle it. And so where does he go? He says, who do I talk to? Yeah. You know, when my family are not able to understand this is what's going on for me. So I've got a chapter called the God chapter, you know, Cosmic Consciousness, where I've got 2 ministers of religion saying how their contact experiences and their past life experiences have shifted their whole understanding of theology, where they've reappraised the way that they understand, you know, the Bible and the teachings, and broadened it out into a whole new understanding. And how important it is that these other churches start to understand this as well, because some are accepting and some are not. Some say this is demons, so they're full of fear and what have you. And I had an young Indian man contact me, and it's in this chapter, where he says, Mary, I know I'm a starseed, but all my culture looks on these beings as gods, he said, but they're extraterrestrials, they're not gods, and they worship them. What do I do? So we've got to, you know, the challenge in that chapter is to those that still want to see it within a traditional understanding of spirituality, and saying we can still have the mandate, but we have to broaden out the fact that this is really, you know, the gods of old were not gods, but actually extraterrestrials with abilities, with technology and what have you. So you've got 2 ministers. One of them's coming out the space closet for the very first time. He's been a minister for 40 years. And he's saying how his understanding with his past lives and through his encounters has completely reappraised his understanding of God in his spirituality. So with brave souls like this, you know, you've got to say now, we've got an MD, we've got a molecular scientist, we've got, you know, a minister of religion, all saying, this is my truth. This is how I understand myself after my activation and my understanding. So, and out-of-body experiences, so many, 80% of people with experiences have out-of-body experiences. So what is that? So the book, in essence, is really saying all of these experiences are valid, they shift consciousness, and we have got to start realizing we live in a reality dysfunction. And it's time we reappraised what reality is and bring in the quantum hologram, which does explain it from science. And this is where Free comes in, because many of the directors of Free are scientists, astrophysicists, yes, that are saying we can understand it through the quantum hologram. So what's wonderful about Free is that it can substantiate these multidimensional experiences through the latest understanding of science and the quantum hologram. So it isn't crazy stuff, guys. It actually can be quantified through science. And this is what we're hoping to do with Free and everything that we are researching in this whole paradigm and this wonderful shift that's going on now.
Wow, this is magnificent. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, well, you know, as an astrologer, I have been through so much of the same thing. As a walk-in, I've been through so much of the same thing. And I'm thinking, this needs no proof. It is empirically proven every single day. And I'm so glad that you brought everybody into it, including the walk-in phenomenon, because that I have not heard anybody talk about it in that way. And it's very, very reassuring. And there's so much I know in your book. One of the things that I would love you to share is the hybrid phenomenon, because this is something that is fascinating to me. Can you elaborate on it a little bit? Because I think it's fascinating and I think it'll help our audience.
The hybrid phenomena is really fascinating because really we're all hybrids, I believe. And I talk about the anomalies in the DNA where we obviously have been intelligently designed. But with that, we've been told that there's many species that have added their DNA to human DNA to start with. One 16-year-old young man who calls himself a hybrid explained it beautifully. He said it's like this: as we raise frequency and we become more activated, what we do is we tap into the extraterrestrial DNA within us. And as we actually raise the frequency and we tap into the frequencies of that particular species, whether it's Pleiadian, Arcturian, Andromedan, or whatever, we then connect to that part of ourselves and say, I feel I'm an Andromedan, I feel I'm Pleiadian. What we're doing actually is activating through our higher frequencies that part that's in our DNA, and that is why we will then say, I am Pleiadian or Arcturian. And as that frequency rises, then we connect to more of our extraterrestrial DNA. As as that frequency touches the frequency that's in our DNA itself with those particular species. So he says, so you may say you're Pleiadian because that's the frequency you're at the moment with in your DNA. But you may go and say I'm Arcturian, or you may say this. It's what frequency you're connecting to at that particular time that will give you the sense of being whatever you are as a hybrid, etc., etc. So that one really resonated with me. But there are many now that are coming out and saying, I'm part human, I'm part reptilian, I'm human, part grey, I'm part human, part mantis, or whatever. Again, I think what's happening is that their frequency is resonating to that other aspect of themselves. And what is interesting is that now books are being written. Meet the Hybrids by Miguel Mendoca and Barbara Lamb is a really good one. And they're talking about the hybrids are here to bridge the gap, to actually say, you know, we're here to help so that when things shift and humans realize that we're part of all these species, that we can then interface better through that understanding of our hybrid nature. And so it's normalizing it. It's normalizing our hybrid nature. So there's a lot more than that, but in essence, this is part of our evolution to tap into and connect to those extraterrestrial aspects of ourselves. I hope that sort of makes sense.
Oh, brilliantly, brilliantly. And I think I'd like to ask one final question before I very reluctantly say goodbye to you this time and invite you to come back many, many times, anytime you like. From what you have said, what is our next step? As you stand back and see what is happening, and you may not be able to pin it down to the next step, but I see us progressing, awakening as a planet, and preparing for something enormous. What do you see as you look beyond the far horizon?
Well, many intuitives have told me that there is going to be some kind of event or catalyst, something that is going to give us that final wake-up call so that we can connect to our galactic family. Now, whatever that is, many have different ideas on what that may be, but it may be a series of events that ultimately give us that full understanding. But I also believe absolutely that when I listen to the children and they tell me that this is a crucial time in human evolution, that they've come here to assist in the waking up of humanity, I have to think, because they're 10, 12, 14, it's not going to be long. It's going to be soon. And I think it's certainly going to be sooner rather than later. And I think we've come in to assist with that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on this journey now. So I think it's going to be good. It's going to be exciting, maybe a little bit scary for some, but for goodness sake, we've come here to live and experience. So don't be afraid of it. Let's know that we're eternal. We're always going to come back anyway, but we've come here to see this shift. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here right now.
Marvelous, marvelous. Mary, thank you so, so much for being my guest. Again, I want you to come back. You've written so much in the book I want you to elaborate on. Once again, everybody, the book is called The New Human Awakening to Our Cosmic Heritage. And so I bid you good evening and invite you all to come back. And before I let you go, keep in mind that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. See you soon.